Greetings, my fellow quantum side of addictioners. How are you tonight? Tonight we talk about a, another touchy topic, methadone, and the effects of it on the brain. First, let me just say I don't want to offend anyone. I come out of love and compassion and hopes that I can save, if not everybody, one person. Um, I have a history with methadone, a very brief one. When I moved back from New York to Baltimore, I was living out of my truck, and I got hooked on smack again to put me to sleep at night. When I lost my truck, I roamed the streets for about a week, and before I wanted to get into a program, I decided to get clean because I didn't want to be chasing in the program. I decided to get clean and I wanted the stuff out of my system. So I went to a methadone clinic and they started me off on 30 milligrams. And I believe the next day it went up to 50, just like that. Um, I kind of spaced it out. I missed a day here, missed a day there. And all in all, I may have been on it for about a good 2 weeks. And the withdrawal symptoms had faded, damn near all gone. The only thing I couldn't sleep at night. And once I had missed 3 days from the clinic, they I guess they discontinued my prescription. So all in all, before I got back my regular sleeping pattern, it took maybe about a good 2 months, maybe 2 3 months, and I got my sleeping pattern back, but it was rough. I I, I had the antsy leg. I was very restless, and it wasn't a really smooth transition. Like I didn't feel anything. Just no, I felt a little something. So tonight I'm offering just a little insight for those who are on methadone. We all know somebody who's on methadone. We all seen them on the bus or seen them on the bus stop nodding off or whatever. And a lot of times, people who take methadone, they mix it with something else, and that effect is like, I guess, very similar to heroin. But I do know that methadone was invented by the Germans. I, Google says methadone is a part of a category of drugs called opioids. German doctors created it during World War II. When it came to the United States, doctors used it to treat people with extreme pain. Today, you might also get it as part of a treatment program for an addiction to heroin or narcotic painkillers. Yeah. And I don't know if you know it or not, they'll quickly up your dose if you're going to a clinic. I don't know whether they get paid uh, to up your dose or not, but in the matter of a month, you'll go from 30 milligrams all the way up to 100, just like that. So but for some people, it's a lifesaver. It gets them off of the street, I guess. It eliminates them going finding drugs. It's a safe haven, and it has saved lives, saved lives. But Um, Also, it attacks your brain cells and it dumbs you down to the fact where as though it's really hard to recover. And this these articles that I'll be reading from comes from these articles come from verywellmind.com. Okay, and it says that heroin, heroin and methadone use affect the brain in dramatical ways. It eats at the blood. It eats at the cells. Drugs such as heroin and methadone can have significant effect on the brain, particularly during important periods of development. These drugs also cause changes in the brain circuits that are associated with pleasure, memory, learning, and decision making, but they can have other damages as well. Drug effects on the brain of heroin and methadone. Some of the potential impacts of heroin and methadone use on the brain include brain abnormalities, changes in the brain chemistry, damage to brain cells, decreased oxygen for brain tissue, decreased task performance, drug dependence and addiction, memory impairment. Research in 2005 study published in Neuropathology and Applied Neurobiology, researchers examined the brains of 34 people who used heroin and methadone who died at an average age of 26 years old, some of which as young as 17. Researchers compared their brains to the brains of 16 of to the brains of 16 young people who also died young but who did not use drugs. The examination found that people who use drugs were up to 3 times more likely to have brain damage than those who do not use. The brains of those young people who used drugs appeared similar to those of much older people, with the damage comparable to someone with Alzheimer's disease. The damaged nerve cells were in the areas of the brain that involved learning, memory, and emotional well-being, and were similar to damage found in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. How it happened. Heroin and methadone use leads to changes in the physical structure of the brain. These changes result in imbalances in the neurons and hormones, which can be long lasting and difficult to reverse. Because drugs like heroin and methadone are depressants, they can cause decreased breathing and reduce oxygen levels in the blood and brain. In some cases, such as during a drug overdose, this can result in immediate effects that can potentially lead to death. It could also lead to cumulative effects, cumulative effects that cause slower to development damage to the brain. Rats were given a daily dose of methadone for 3 weeks. Once treatment was completed, brain areas which are central for learning and memory were removed and examined for possible neurobiological changes or damage. In one study, on the day after the last exposure to methadone, there was a significant reduction, around 70%, in the level of a signal molecule, which is important in learning and memory in both the in both the hippocampus and in the frontal area of the brain. This reduction supports findings from previous studies where impaired attention in rats was found at the same time. At this time, methadone is no longer present in the brain. This indicates that methadone cellular can lead to cellular changes that affect cognitive functioning after the drug has left the body, which may be cause for concern. There you have it. And there's like tons of more stuff, but I'm just reading a few. I don't want to flood your minds right now, but just giving you a quick insight of the effects of methadone on the brain and long-term use. It says it erases 70% of the brain cells in your brain that's linked to memory and learning. So, uh, in other words, it makes you dumb. And long-term use, where you're just increasing the dose, I guess you really have to ask yourself when you get on methadone, are you just looking for a safe way to get high, or are you looking to leave it alone altogether? Like I said, it took me about maybe 2 weeks for the physical part of it. You know, after that, I was I had maybe another month of maybe not that long, a few restless nights and so forth. But I had made it up in my mind that I was done, and I believe that's the first step. Are you just looking for maintenance, or are you done? Okay, and I know in men it makes you impotent. It causes erectile dysfunction. Um, it makes you constipated. Can't go to the bathroom. You might be backed up for days. You know? So ask yourself: are you looking for maintenance, or are you looking to get off this thing? Because the effects of the brain for long-term use were dramatic. It was so long that I couldn't. I was like, no, I'm not going to read all this. But it's a lot of information on the effects of methadone on the brain. That's the quantum side of things. You know, I'm here to help make you aware of the effects of what we're doing briefly, because I don't like to touch on a lot of stuff that will trigger our old patterns. But I'm going to make you aware. I'm going to help get you aware. Okay? That's the quantum side of addiction. And this is the vortex. Peace.